Hey, if you're anywhere near software development right now, you already know the ground is completely shifting beneath our feet. Welcome to this explainer. We are moving away from just casually tinkering with AI to actually integrating it at the very core of our enterprise systems. And honestly, that requires a totally new playbook. Think about the ultimate illusion of speed we've hit lately. Back in early 2024, you were probably digging through manual API docs, line by line debugging, and pulling your hair out over a single missing semicolon. Today, it's warp speed. It literally feels like you've been handed a legion of tireless interns churning out thousands of lines of code before you've even finished your morning coffee. But here's the catch. While our velocity has hit overdrive, typing fast is definitely not the same thing as successfully shipping secure, maintainable software. You might have heard the phrase vibe coding is not vibing in production, and it is so true. Using AI to rapidly generate code based on a high-level intent isn't the same as actually shipping reliable, governed enterprise software. You can give an AI a vague vibe of what you want, and sure, it'll build it. But if that AI hallucinates, it doesn't just make a tiny typo. It confidently mints thousands of lines of functionally broken logic. Okay, let's get into section 1, the blueprint. To tame this absolute wild west of rogue agents and fragmented context, we have to establish a really structured framework. We're talking about spec-driven development. This means moving away from being code first to becoming blueprint first. In this new workflow, your role evolves. You go from being a manual coder to a technical architect, directing those AI interns via ironclad blueprints. And here is the truly mind-bending part. The code itself is now entirely disposable. Seriously, no emotional attachment allowed. The detailed technical specification becomes your sacred architectural North Star. If your spec is flawless, you can just regenerate the entire codebase whenever you want. Now, language models are incredibly sensitive to how you format their instructions. Data from a 2026 study tracking parsing accuracy for deep nesting shows something fascinating. It turns out that mixing narrative markdown with deeply nested YAML completely eliminates the AI's reasoning format tax. For deep configuration structures, YAML hits nearly 52% parsing accuracy. That absolutely crushes JSON at around 43% and XML way down at 33%. So by keeping your narrative instructions in plain markdown, but switching to YAML for the complex data, you keep the agent accurate and your processing costs way down. And if you want to remove all ambiguity, behavior-driven development is the way to go. It forces the language model to think in strict terms of state, action, and outcome without ever guessing. By using a standardized framework like Gherkin syntax, scenario, given, when, then, you are essentially laying down rigid train tracks for your AI to follow. It leaves absolutely zero room for vibe coding. You're giving the agent a precise, undeniable path. Now, what happens when things break? When you shift into forensic specialist mode for bug fixing, you can't just tell the AI, hey, the app is broken. You have to use evidence prompting to surgically guide the agent right to the exact root cause. You map out the exact execution flow, like the request hits the load balancer, auth strips the header, the pod fails. You provide the exact log files and the failing unit test, and you put strict constraints on the agent to only fix that specific root cause. No randomly cleaning up unrelated code. To seamlessly plug all these smart agents into your existing architecture, we use the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Think of it as the USB-C for AI tools. Instead of writing custom, tedious integrations for every single database or API you use, you just build one single MCP server. Boom. From that point on, any compatible AI agent can instantly connect to those tools. It's a literal game changer for scaling up your agent's capabilities. Which brings us to our next major challenge in Section 2, the human bottleneck. So, we've successfully fixed the code production bottleneck, right? But in doing so, we've created a massive integration bottleneck. You simply cannot bolt 20-year-old review workflows onto Agentic AI without causing massive review gridlock and team burnout. It's literally like putting a jet engine on a horse-drawn carriage. If an AI is generating hundreds of pull requests an hour, and a human still has to manually read every single line, well, your speed advantage just drops to zero. You just end up with an unmanageable pile of code waiting for a very tired human to look at it. And when I say tired, I mean it. Get this, frequent AI users are facing a staggering 45% higher likelihood of burnout just from the sheer volume of AI-generated pull requests. Developers are getting completely exhausted. They start reflexively clicking approve just to keep their heads above water, and that crucial attention to detail completely vanishes. To combat this insane fatigue, teams are deploying continuous code review tiers that scale all the way from generic off-the-shelf tools to full custom knowledge graphs. You can start with Tier 1 for simple, managed, out-of-the-box reviews. Most teams eventually land in Tier 2, the hybrid model, where they write custom review prompts that trigger automatically in their CI pipelines. But at the highest enterprise level, that's Tier 3. This actually maps your entire codebase into a graph database, like a giant map of how everything connects, allowing the AI to truly understand the structural impact of a change across millions of lines of legacy code before a human even glances at it. All right, moving right along to Section 3, Zero Trust Development. As we delegate more and more autonomy to these agents, we absolutely must transition into a civilized, zero-trust metropolis. You cannot just let these agents run wild, because you really have to ask yourself, what actually happens when an AI acts faster than a human can think? That is the most critical risk with autonomous systems operating in an enterprise environment without strict digital boundaries. If an agent has tools, but it lacks the exact data it needs to fill a prompt, it will try to optimize its goal using whatever random strings it can find in its context. Let me give you a crazy cautionary tale. In one instance, a simple prompt asked an agent to test a UI button click, but the agent didn't have a URL. So it panicked, hallucinated a connection to a deprecated legacy system, and blasted out 50 fake emails to coworkers purely to fill a context gap. It wasn't malicious, you know? It was just an overeager intern acting without any boundaries. To contain this kind of blast radius, your enterprise infrastructure needs essential safety nets. First, ephemeral Docker sandboxes, basically temporary containerized digital cages. If an agent executes something destructive, it only takes down a disposable container. Second, you absolutely need human-in-the-loop checkpoints for high-risk actions, like database changes. And finally, you must force the AI to generate failing test coverage before it writes the actual code, combined with behavioral evaluation to ensure every single step is verifiable. These boundaries are enforced by a policy server, which separates structural gating from semantic gating. Structural gating is deterministic, it's simple, binary traffic lights based on roles. Does this role have permission to use this tool? Yes or no. But semantic gating? That is brilliant. It uses a secondary LLM as an intelligent referee to read the intent of the action. So even if the agent technically has permission to send an email, the semantic gate will intercept and stop the action if it realizes that email contains raw, unmasked private user data. And this relies heavily on rigorous context hygiene. This means using dynamic resolvers, which is basically an automated find and replace, to mask sensitive PII with safe bracketed placeholders. Ensuring the agent operates only on sterilized data completely eliminates the risk of an AI accidentally leaking or acting upon sensitive private information during a hallucination. So the tools are definitely out there to move from chaotic vibe coding to a rock-solid production reality. But as you build these zero-trust safety nets and successfully manage your legion of AI interns, it leaves us challenging the very foundation of traditional engineering culture. Think about it. If you can work with a squad of autonomous agents doing all the heavy lifting of writing, testing, and reviewing your code, do you even need to work as a team at all?